Justice Patnaik, Dr. Sethi, Dr. Mathur, dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, ladies and gentlemen. The wheel has indeed turned full circle. That I should be chosen, of all people, to bestow awards upon the very first judge before whom I ever appeared, Justice Sudarta Manohar. My first attorney general inspector Baba. My dearest friend and brother, Arjun Sikri, is a remarkable day for me and a very, very happy day. It's my great regret that Reddy was not a Justice Reddy, so that I could have had something to do with it. But he appears to be the tallest of all of us because he is doing great work. Justice Krishna Iyer actually has an era named after. I mean, just as you would say the era of the 1950s in the Supreme Court would be, let's say, the era of Bijan Kumar Mukherjee, who was the tallest judge of the 50s. Justice Subbarao being the tallest judge, perhaps, of the 1960s. Justice Krishna Iyer was certainly the tallest judge of the 1970s. And given the fact that his language was often ununderstandable, what was amazing was through that thicket of words, the ideas that flowed and that came out were beacons of light. It's amazing. Normally, it is simple language alone that can communicate something with clarity. He's perhaps the only person that I have come across who was able to communicate through the most difficult language, the most simple and beautiful thoughts. It's remarkable. For example, you just look at a sentence where he exposes drunks for what they are. In P.N. Kaushal versus India, he says they take reeling, rolling trips in the realms of the jocos, belliocos, lacrimos, and comatos. Now, each word is a vessel which carries with it something of extremely pregnant import. You will see that when a person gets run, the first thing that he does is to get extremely happy. The next thing that he does is to get extremely sad. The third thing that he does is to be on the penumbra of being comatose. And the fourth is that he falls down and drops dead. Now, each of these words is pregnant and amazing with thought. Now, all his judgments read this way. If we start with, and I want to now give you Justice Krishna Iyer through Justice Krishna Iyer's language, which is why I have this sheaf of paper before me. I normally don't speak with papers. Yes, I don't speak with any paper. But I want Justice Krishna Iyer to speak to you through his language, so that what I say comes out. Now, the very first interesting case which came before him and which really catapulted him into fame was when he sat as a vacation judge. And all of you know this great order, it's called an order, it's really a big judgment, which he delivered in Indira Gandhi's case. Don't forget, Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of the country and a very powerful one at that. This little vacation judge heard arguments from both sides. The easiest thing he could have done is to have stayed the judgment and passed it on to his brethren in another 2 weeks, and they could have done whatever they wanted. Instead of that, he analyzed the law, gave Mrs. Gandhi exactly what he would give to any other member of parliament, and that then led to, as all of you know, the emergency, because despite the fact that he stayed her disqualification, he said she could enter Parliament House, but beyond that, no nothing. No vote, no nothing. And this is how he begins this remarkable judgment, if I may say so. Having regard to the obstreperous environs and mounting tensions surrounding the events following upon the judgment of the Allahabad High Court, it must be stated to the credit of Sri Palkhiwala and Sri Shanti Bhushan that in their suave submissions, they have shown how sound and fury only help thwart the thought-ways of law, and extra-legal tumults can be walled off from the courtroom. The arguments have been largely legal, and their merits have to be weighed in judicial scales. What perhaps in a certain view are not strictly pertinent to the state proceedings have, however, been adverted to at the bar, inevitably and understandably, but within marginal limits, if I may say so, because the proceedings in the halls of justice must be informed to some extent by the great verity that the broad sweep of human history is guided by sociological forces beyond the ken of the noisy hour or the quirk of legal nicety. Life is larger than law. Beautiful. In state of Kerala versus Thomas, which was a 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court, Justice Krishna Iyer, in a concurring judgment, gives us his idea of constitutional law. It's a very interesting and informative passage. It says, law, including constitutional law, can no longer go it alone, but must be illumined in the interpretative process by sociology and allied fields of knowledge. Indeed, the term constitutional law symbolizes an intersection of law and politics, wherein issues of political power are acted on by persons trained in the legal tradition, working in judicial institutions, following the procedures of law, thinking as lawyers think. So much so, a wider perspective is needed to resolve issues of constitutional law. One cannot agree with the view of an eminent jurist, that is Justice Hidayat. The judiciary as a whole is not interested in the policy underlying a legislative measure. Moreover, the Indian Constitution is a great social document, almost revolutionary in its aim of transforming a medieval hierarchical society into a modern egalitarian democracy. If I may pause here for a moment, the difference between a constitution governing us and an absolute monarch governing us is given by this great story about Peter the Great. Peter the Great in Russia was a huge figure, 6'7", and intellectually tall and otherwise tall in every manner. Now he went as ordinary Peter along with a whole group of Russians and toured Europe for about 2 years in order to learn how to build ships and how generally to attempt to bring Russia out of the Middle Ages, exactly as our constitution is trying, and bring it into modern society. One of the first things he did when he came back was to issue an edict saying all beards must be removed. And he gave free razors to everybody so that people on the street could be shaved on the spot. Now it was found because a beard was something which held these people back, and the symbol of a beard being removed would mean that you have now put your past behind you, please move forward. It didn't work. So what did he do? Undeterred, he imposed a beard tax. And he said that all of you will now, if you want to keep your beards, state in a little placard in front that you have actually paid the tax. Otherwise, you will be shaved on the spot. Now the